Hi, my name is Talia Garagosian, and for my final project, I'll be conducting a presentation on educational reform, specifically on the process of detracking. What exactly is detracking? Detracking is the process wherein students are no longer placed in classrooms based on their racial background, economic status, or academic ability, but rather integrated into classrooms, acquiring students of all academic levels in order to generate a balanced and equal educational system. The significance of detracking is that integrated classrooms can alter the stratification and inequality currently present in the educational system and yield students an enhanced possibility of acquiring higher paying, politically powerful, and prestigious jobs in the future. The interdisciplinary subjects that I used for my project come in two branches of the social sciences and the humanities. For the social sciences, I used articles and studies, and for the humanities, I used one poem and one painting. Getting started on some findings, Alec Tyson reports that 66% of the population is in favor of observing change in the school systems. 45% specifically vouch for a completely new educational system compared to 21% who vouched for some dimension of reform. Nonetheless, if more than half the population is in favor of altering a current system imposed by the nation, it's significant to consider the salience of the subject at hand. Moving forward to our first humanities subject of a poem called An American Education by Emily Mez, she states, "In school they taught us about King and Chavez, but that's it. The textbooks lied to you because half the truth is still a lie. Exclusion of important figures like Fannie Lou Hamer can lead to several ideological consequences. In fact, Fannie Lou Hamer stood right next to Martin Luther King Jr. during his March on Washington, seeing that she played a significant role both in the civil rights movement and the first wave of feminism. The consequence of students learning only about certain historical figures can lead to believing concepts that the school enforces, such as white supremacy. The textbooks are shaping the ideologies generated by students and developing racist beliefs that the theorist Pierre Bourdieu discusses in his work. Bourdieu opens a discourse on cultural reproduction, where an institution uses its power and control to maintain the current system. The exclusion of learning about Fannie Lou Hamer disables students from recognizing the dent that an African American woman can leave on society. Instead, the system focuses on teaching students about predominantly white male figures, such as Karl Marx, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Henry Adams, and many, many more. Even a simple Google search can yield mostly white male results when you type up role models in history. All in all, Emily Mez uses her voice to show that textbooks have an immense power on shaping students' ideologies. Moving forward, Beth Rubin's findings suggest that low-income children of all ethnicities are overrepresented in lower tracks and vocational programs. Placing these students in lower tracks or alternative programs discourages them from thriving in school and encourages them to focus more on work just to make the means meet the end. In other words, tracking is prevailing a segregated system and by doing so maintaining socioeconomic differences within the classrooms. By segregating low-income students into lower track classrooms, they're generating a less challenging environment and thus possibly encouraging students to ascertain vocational programs so as to maintain the concept of class consciousness developed by Karl Marx. Though Rubin vouches for the detracking system, she also explains the disadvantage of the program. So there's a good thing and a bad thing. For example, detracking can pose as a sole issue for teachers. Funding will be a necessary element in order to retrain all the teachers so that they know how to integrate a balanced classroom with mixed ability students. Similarly, Richard Rothstein utilizes a strategy that is presumed to be more beneficial for bilingual students. His suggestion requires that bilingual students initiate their education on a lower or slower track, so as to help them generate so as to help generate their intellectual platform. Starting off with a slower track allows bilingual students to maintain educational attainment of all subjects while improving and strengthening their English. However, once they reach a point of confidence, they'll more easily integrate into an average English classroom and therefore interact with their peers. This process is successful due to the fact that students are keeping up with their required classes while integrating and strengthening their English. Alternative strategies recommend immersing native students directly into an English classroom. This is called the sink or swim strategy. With this approach, students are not encouraged or geared towards success. Instead, their confidence is diminished by being compared to native English speakers, and thus it makes dropping out seem like a viable option. This can eventually lead to a predestined future of working a minimum wage job and restrict them from grasping opportunities meant to challenge and assist them in achieving a bright future. Moving on to our second humanities subject, Norman Rockwell painted this image. It's called The Problem We All Live With. Just going to move myself over. Alright, so Henry Adams' analyzation of Norman Rockwell's painting suggests that today's segregation in classrooms is a result of a historical dilemma in the painting. In the painting, there are 5 individuals, 4 of which whose heads are absent, and these men are wearing patches on their left arm or shoulder, and it says Deputy U.S. Marshal on it. In the middle, there walks the last individual, who appears to be a young African-American girl wearing 2 braids, holding what can be presumed as her books, and wears white so as to initiate her pureness. Though the men appear to be wearing darker or neutral colored suits, which contradict with her. Please pay attention to the arrows as I have inserted them to distinguish the vulgar and racist symbols displayed in the background. These are all significant entities to notice while examining the painting in order to discuss the problem at hand, which is racism in the school place. The fact that Miss Ridge had to be escorted to school in order to avoid violence establishes the extent of inequality and stratification present at that time. Though Ruby Ridge's school experience may be incomparable to today's schools, there is no denying that minorities still face some form of stratification and inequality. Ethics play just as large of a role as in the school system as anything else. According to Sheila Bond and Paul Ferenczi, the virtue approach should be a prominent theory utilized so that students and their education are prioritized. Similarly, Nancy Ames and Edward Miller utilize ethics in their journal in the attempts of personalizing the school. They verbalize an ethical school system as equal treatment of all students regardless of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender, or disability. Finally, George Cohen discusses the responsibilities of the teachers in order to maintain an ethical educational vicinity. The responsibilities of the teachers come alongside the evaluation and the exams. The process of this is that teachers are implementing subjects or teaching subjects more deeply that the students are to be tested on so that their evaluations come out higher. Obviously, this isn't ethical, so if we were to eliminate the requirements of the exams, or if they were altered, teachers would be more motivated and encouraged to produce well-rounded students. Moving on to our first actual development of detracking, Jeannie Oakes uses her study of detracking as a successful outcome due to the 10 schools who initiated this system. The first entity she mentions draws on the concept of C. Wright Mills and Pierre Bourdieu. The concept of the power elite and cultural reproduction are present in the ideology developed by elite parents who refuse to hop on board of the detracking program. However, Oakes provides several successful steps in which they took to detract the schools. For starters, she states that the bottom track should be completely eliminated, so as to keep students from developing comfort in the low-level and less challenging learning environments. However, there poses to be an issue with this, and it's developed by Stephen Sugarman's research. He exposes readers to the idea that bottom track may be necessary for low-income students, given the fact that they come from low-income residential communities and also low-income schools of low quality. When students are integrating or transferring into these better schools, they'll need a platform to base on, and that means that we need to establish or keep that bottom track, especially with the bilingual students as well, as I had mentioned before. So if the bottom track is completely eliminated, low-income students or bilingual students may feel excluded and discouraged within their advanced classrooms, which duplicates the exact issue that Rothstein and Rubin discussed in their research. Though this is one flaw of the process of detracking, the more successful steps include Socratic seminars whereby students lead the classroom discussion themselves so as to share their ideas on a particular topic and relate it to relative other material in the curriculum. The next step in the process includes the equal treatment distributed within teachers. Teachers currently actually form a hierarchy within themselves in the tracking system, where each teacher is assigned a certain level to teach. However, with the detracking program, this would be neutralized so that all teachers would be able to teach any level, and this would eliminate the hierarchy created for them. Therefore, students would be taught at the same level, so as to eliminate the amateur teachers being placed in the low-track classrooms. The final step in the process of detracking is the establishment of after-school programs. In order to avoid the stress developed through challenging courses, one way that students were reinforced was through after-school programs to help alleviate their stress and offer support through academia, giving students the opportunity to relearn subjects or concepts that initially posed as a challenge for them, and hence raise their GPA. Similarly, Maureen Hallinan discusses the detracking movement to conclude findings from research developed. The main finding she focuses on is the fact that students who were placed in low-track programs scored less on the standardized test compared to their mixed ability peers. As mentioned before, generating heterogeneity within classrooms benefits the lower track students by stimulating their motivation and confidence to learn from their higher track peers. Additionally, amateur teachers were distributed to lower track classrooms specifically, meaning that lower track students were flawed with inexperienced role models to guide their education, compared to the experienced or tenured teachers placed in the higher tracks. The animation included portrays satirical content of studying. However, we can relate this directly to Hallinan's findings of the student being deprived of quality teachers who appropriately educate him on all the angles of of algebra. This brings me to my conclusion. Reflecting back on the research covered on the implemented programs of detracking, there is a clear indication that students are placed in heterogeneous classrooms to generate an equal environment and eliminate any attempt of racism or elitism to segregate them from achieving advanced opportunity based on hierarchy. Reforming the educational system through the attempts of detracking appears to be the best interest of all counterparts of the school organization. Detracking allows for a more equal distribution of resources and opportunities amongst the teachers and the students. Though detracking poses as an obstacle for teachers, if funding of the schools is prioritized, teachers will be able to receive the proper training to make them equipped for handling the new detracking. Detracking system enhances the ability to be a successful program with the help of the appropriate individuals and resources. Detracking not only encourages diversity within the school and the workplace, but also motivates students to strive for advanced education, allowing them to test their academic thresholds. Essentially, detracking is the future of education in the United States and is a necessary program to implement in order to avoid stratification and inequality and yield students with an enhanced possibility of achieving higher paying, politically powerful, and prestigious careers in the future. Thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoyed the presentation.